Welcome back. It's been a crazy college football season up to this point, and I've got a couple of guys to sort it all out. Joining me to my right is the distinguished Mike Heil, and to my left, a guy who has never met a reasonable volume he's liked, Alex Rosenbaum. Guys, let's get right into it. Alabama, big-time loss against South Carolina this week. Is it too far-fetched to think Alabama can still come back and play in a national championship? People still think they're the best team. Alex?
They still need to win out the SEC, and that's tough enough. They've got two top 10 opponents, and they have to go into Death Valley at LSU, and they still got to play Auburn at the end of the season, which so far has looked like the best team in the SEC. Also, you're going to need Oregon to lose, Oklahoma to lose, Ohio State to lose, Michigan State to lose. There's too many teams you have to lose, and they have to win. I don't see it happening for them. I think they're done.
So Alex, you are not a fan of the if situation, and I am, because here's what's going to happen. Alabama has a legitimate shot of winning out the SEC because they're not a worse team than they were 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, everyone said they were unstoppable, and with one loss to South Carolina, that does not disprove that. If Oklahoma loses, if Ohio State loses, if TCU, Boise State, all these people could legitimately lose, and you can't rule out and say that they are not going to be in the championship because those teams look like they probably won't.
Maybe he's just being reasonable. Go on.
All of them could lose. Are all of them going? Do you really think that Boise's going to lose or TCU? Alabama will probably jump TCU. Boise will be in there, and then you need another team to lose. I love Ohio State. Michigan State's got Iowa left, only ranked team left. Okay. They've looked great. Oregon dominant in the Pac-10. There's too many teams you're asking for. The Big 12 right now has 4 teams undefeated. One of those teams is probably going to stay undefeated.
I hear what you're saying, man, but Nebraska and Oklahoma have a legitimate battle going on there. Ohio State could lose. It's not over for Alabama.
It's possible, not probable.
Let's play the if game with another team now. Florida State has looked very impressive in their ACC openers. They beat Miami quite handily. Is Florida State the best team in the ACC? Are they going to take this conference, Mike?
I'm going to say yes, because I think it's going to come down to the championship game between, I'm going to say, Florida State and Virginia Tech. And going into that game, as much as it pains me to say it, I think that Tyrod Taylor and Ryan Williams are not living up to what they were supposed to be for this year. They're great players, but they have not been bringing it, and especially in a big situation, in a big-time game, I can see them dropping the ball, and I can see Florida State really pulling this one out.
I agree with you on the matchup. I think Virginia Tech and Florida State are going to be there. They're the two best teams on each side. Miami might play a little spoiler there. I doubt it. But what Frank Beamer's done, coach of Virginia Tech, is he's let Tyrod play more of the option game. They were trying to do the traditional power running game, and their running backs haven't been as good. So they're taking the speedy Darren Evans and Tyrod running that options, and Tyrod's looked incredible since they've kind of moved away from the traditional power running game. So I like them.
That's a potential big game coming up in the future, but this week we have a big one in the SEC. Arkansas, Auburn. We already talked about Auburn, maybe the best team in that conference. Who are you taking in this one? Alex, I'll let you
Auburn
start.
at home, Cam Newton over Ryan Mallett. I can't
honestly disagree with you, man. I think that Cam Newton is being dominant this year. Ryan Mallett, we saw him really struggle early on in the season. I think Arkansas comes into this game guns blazing, ready to be the spoiler alert, and I don't see them pulling that upset. I think Auburn's got it.
Yeah, well, big storyline of that game. Gus Malzahn, the former offensive coordinator of Arkansas, is now the offensive coordinator at Auburn. He's got a great running game. Michael Dyer is that freshman running back, big-time player. Let's move on to the Big Ten. This one hits home for me. Ohio State is still undefeated, thank God, and they have a big game against Wisconsin. But is there any team? It may be Wisconsin. Is there any team within the Big Ten that can knock them off?
Well, you just mentioned it. I'm going Wisconsin as the potential. I'm not sure if they're going to do it, but we're going to find out this weekend. Wisconsin is going to play Iowa, and I think those are the only 2 big games left for Ohio State, and we're going to find out what these 2 teams are made of this weekend, and I'll be ready to make that call next week. I see Wisconsin being as the last remaining obstacle for Ohio State.
Wow, so it's this week in the national championship?
No, I mean, I think that Wisconsin has a chance to prove themselves, and eventually they'll. It all depends on what comes out of it. But yes, I see Wisconsin as being the spoiler potential team for Ohio State.
Okay,
I like Wisconsin. Iowa's the team that I think would be the better spoiler. I think Ohio State gets past both of them because they play their games better than they do. Ohio State plays defense better than both. I know Iowa's right now number 1 in points against. Ohio State's 6th, but I think they're a better defense. They've done it over the years. It's too bad that Michigan State, the other power team in the Big Ten this year, doesn't get a play. It's going to be really interesting if those teams are both undefeated at the end of the year, but I think Ohio State goes undefeated.
Well, let's talk about another Big Ten guy, Denard Robinson. He had kind of a shaky week this last one. Michigan took on Michigan State. Sparty rolled. Denard Robinson isn't the Heisman leader anymore, at least to many. Now, who are you taking to be your Heisman leader as of right now? Is it Pryor?
It's not Pryor. If he keeps it up, he'll move into the conversation. A guy earlier, Cam Newton, great. I think if he keeps up his production in the SEC, he'll be up there. Okay. Right now, it's LaMichael James. He's the best player in the country. I mean, the best player on his team, on one of the top 2 teams in the country. He's the most explosive running back. He's so he's going to have like 2 or 3 70-yard touchdowns every game. It's just not fair. But don't count Denard Robinson out of it. If he has a lot of games left, he could be great. But right now, LaMichael James has taken over as the favorite.
Now he'll put up the numbers.
I don't think you can pick a favorite with Denard Robinson falling out. And honestly, in Heisman voting, you can't screw up. You can't even have one faltering step. So I call him out, and I think it's a crapshoot. But if you got to pick one, I got to go Terrell Pryor. Everyone was picking him as being a Heisman candidate because of his running game, and then he showed us this past weekend the man can pass. He's got a 68% completion rating.
Sure.
The man can pass. He can run. I see him coming out as a favorite in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
He's good, but he's not the reason the team wins every week. Their defense is the reason that they're dominant. LaMichael James is the reason that Oregon wins week in and week out because he puts up points. Terrell Pryor is going to have a bad game. I'm going to throw it out there, but Ohio State's still going to be good. LaMichael James is going to carry Oregon
Well, hey,
all the way to the
good
end of the
point.
season.
Give the trophy to the defense. I'd be happy with that. When we return, Christian and the guys are chomping at the bit to talk a little postseason baseball. This is 101 Sports.